Okay, so today, guys, is part 2 of episode 5, a punt or no punt with Steve. If you haven't checked out part 1 yet, I do recommend you do that first so that you know what the score is going into part 2. I'll leave a link in the description below and also a notification in the top right. If you do enjoy the video, then consider dropping a like and subscribing. It does really help me out. But for now, guys, that's going to do it. Take care, stay safe, and enjoy the video. So our next hand is 10-7 of clubs. Fair play to Steve for bringing some absolute punts to the show today. Let's see what we've got in this hand. We're 4-1 down right now, Steve. How are you feeling moving into the second half?
Yeah, it's good. Feel good.
Perfect. We're calling the big blind, which seems reasonable. We check calling the flop. Definitely not check raising this board. Pretty good turn. I think we'll definitely check raise this. Any information on villain? Do you remember?
Let me have a look.
Certainly going with...
on the tighter side, but small sample.
Yeah, certainly raising. Certainly raising. He has obviously lots of king X. We can have some sevens and we can also mix in some hearts, yeah? And we want to put some money in the pot. We are going to be very 7x heavy here, right? Because we have obviously 10-7, you know, 8-7, 9-7, 6-7, maybe 5-7, depending.
Yeah, out
so,
of blind,
yeah. So we have shitloads of sevens here. So we can be aggressive with some hearts as well for how many sevens we have. He calls, and yeah, very easy bet. And I think we have a bet fold if he's on the tighter side. Horrible spot, but like, yeah, I think when I'm playing, I'm generally just saying, right, and I'll bet fold the river. Because like, what is he really going to jam here that we beat? Okay, he has to be jamming here with like ace king.
Yeah.
And when we represent a 7 as strongly as we do, I don't think he's ever going to do that. Being on the tighter side, I don't think he's ever going to think that ace king is getting called by something that's not a 7 here, because it isn't. You know, because you're not calling with like ace 10, right? And you're not doing this with ace 10 of like hearts, right? So when he jams here, he's just completely nutted. Ace 7, king 7 suited, you know, kings, aces, pretty much it, I think, to be honest, mate. Is he bluffing here ever? Probably should be, but probably isn't.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. This is going to be 5-1, unfortunately, mate. if this gets called.
It's an interesting part to my game where sometimes I will bet fold and then not fold.
Right. So you went bet fold,
which might need work.
Right. Maybe something we could look into. Yeah, he's just going to have a... We'll go with kings. Yeah. It's not really anything else I'm expecting to see there, you know. Is that fair enough? I mean, we can just call here with like king 7.
Yeah, I think so.
Or ace 7. Yeah, because we have better hands, right?
Yeah.
King definitely. 7 and ace 7 are clearly better hands that we're going to have. And when he's going to be bluffing like almost never, potentially never, then especially against when we look like we have a 7, you know, we obviously are going to have a 7 a whole bunch here. So just calling, I think I think we can honestly fold deuces. It's that bad, like in terms of how nutted this guy's going to be. Deuces is not as good as king 7 and ace 7 because they block some boats. But to be honest with you, do I expect to win? Ace 7 we can sometimes win because he can have king 7, but king 7 I still wouldn't expect to win very often. Obviously he's going to have aces a whole bunch and ace 7 when he does this. But there's a small chance that he could, you know, have maybe like queen 7. I don't know. But like even queen 7 we don't beat here, right? So yeah. Sorry, Steve. Punt. 5-1. But to be fair, you've brought like quite a backlog of the database here with you and pretty much chosen, you know, the absolute humdingers, if we're being fair. So yeah, we're going to go with punt, mate, but you know, full respect to you. And yeah, I think this is going to be a fold for me. We'll move on to the next hand. It is 5-1. Steve is going to need some help to get this back to level. We might have a tiebreaker, but we'll see. Let's move on to the next hand. Okay, so our next hand is pocket queens on the cutoff. This is from Steve's shot at 16 from very recent. And he is going to 3-bet. And again, going with the bigger sizing. I'd probably just go with 7.5, but we're not going to spend time on that. And our opponent calls. Ace King 3, we definitely have a small C-bet here with range. And I like that a lot. opponent's going to continue a whole bunch. I think that this is like the clearest check in the world. But Steve doesn't. I mean, I think this is a pretty clear check. Someone might say to me that we're, doing some. I mean, if we're betting here, then it's because of our range advantage, which obviously does exist.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like the other hand. We're in the same positions. He could have Ace King. We do block Ace Queen. We do block King Queen. So like, what kind of hands do we expect opponent to have? Maybe like, if we're now turning our hands into bluff with blockers, effectively, right? And blocking, obviously, having Ace King on the board means he's less likely to have Ace King, and for the fact that he didn't 4-bet means Ace King is unlikely, and he's not going to have Aces and Kings, right? So I think that we can check and use some other hands, because this hand just seems to me to have too much showdown value against like tens and jacks. It just seems unnecessary. But if we're going to bet this turn, we're going to have to bet. We're probably going to have to just go ahead and bet the river, because there's no way when we're called that we're good.
Yeah.
So he's going to have like Ace 10, but not Ace King very much, and not Aces, not Kings, right? So we have a pretty good nutted advantage, so long as he doesn't have threes, which he shouldn't, because we made it bigger, right? So he's not going to have deuces. So it's threes, and then like a lot of like Ace Jack and Ace 10. So my thoughts are that I don't mind it as long as we go with it, but it feels unnecessary against like his entire range.
I think unnecessary is probably a very apt word in this hand.
I think this is a pretty clear check. But if we're doing this, then the last thing I want to see is you check the river. So at least if we do that, we know what our opponent's range is going to look like. If we run to Ace King, that's unfortunate. If we're going to get here with this hand, we definitely need to be just going with our hand on the river. There seems like a point where we maybe could have sized up, like on the turn, to size better for river. But if we had something like Aces, Kings, or Ace King, then we're probably not going to be able to go all that big anyway, because of
I will say I definitely don't give Villain Ace King. I think like I've got them tagged as like good enough to definitely be 4-betting it.
Yeah, and Ace 5 is something we expect to 4-bet, right? He really shouldn't have like Ace 3 or Ace Deuce suited. So yeah, I'm pretty happy to say that our opponent's going to have a lot of Ace Jack, Ace 10 here, and I think when you jam, it's going to be very credible. So what I am going to say, our opponent does fold. That's nice. I'm going to say this is not a punt. Usually I look before the result, but I'm going to go with not a punt. You're 5-1 down, so once we get to the river, we definitely have to bluff. And based on opponent's range, having a lot of like Ace Jack and Ace 10, I would say, suited that we unblock, and blocking Ace Queen, which is going to be like a more popular cooldown, and him not really having much Ace King. I think this is fair. He's not going to have Ace King, so 5x is tough to have when he calls flop and turn. So I think that this is reasonable once we bet turn, but I think turns are necessary. But in terms of punt or no punt, I'm going to go with no punt.
That's a relief.
Steve pulls on back.
The turn is definitely the hardest thing for me to figure out.
Yeah, I don't mind just like
to justify that.
I don't mind going with this with like Queen Jack.
Okay.
To block some like Ace Jacks and Ace Queens, and so he's more likely to have like Ace 10 or maybe Ace 9 suited or something. And obviously it makes more sense, right? Because we can't beat pocket 10s, or pocket jacks. Whereas with this hand we can. We might extract a lot of checks on the river, but remember our flops.
I'd feel very surprised if I'm up against 10s or jacks once we get through the turn. Is my problem?
Oh yeah, no. Once we bet the turn and he calls, there's no way he has those hands. Yeah. So we know what we're up against on the river, which is why I said if you bet the turn, you're gonna have to bet this river. But the problem is when he calls that tiny bet on the flop, we don't have the information of him calling that bet on the turn if we're checking back the turn, right? So as far as we know, he could have stuff like 10s and jacks, which is certainly going to call for like a quarter pot on the flop, right?
Yeah.
So even though it doesn't really want to, because if we'd sized up, then it would make obviously more sense for him to have lots of Ace King and stuff like that. But as played, once we get to the river, I think we certainly have to jam if we're going to play it like this, and it makes some sense to do so. So I will go with extravagant, unnecessary, but no punt.
That's good.
5-2.
That's how I'm often described.
5-2. So let's see if we can claw it back. 3 hands to go. So next time we have pocket 10s on the small blind, we're back to 10 and L, and our opponent is a reg. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And that's probably not him if he's a reg. Okay, so this is reg on the button, I guess. And we're definitely squeezing, and the sizing is good. So where's the reg?
In the big blind.
Doesn't seem like a reg to me.
Well, yeah. So this, I mean, we've had back and forth on what we think of his game. So
okay, I think that this is a mistake.
I have him tagged as I for the longest time have had him down as a maniac.
Okay. And I've got him as a nit.
Yeah, so who knows?
So that shows about what we should do with small samples. Probably not use them, right? But this is a mistake. Like, I think no matter what he has, this is going to be a mistake. Mm-hmm. It's going to be really hard to bounce this.
I tend to tag people as Reki.
But what do we know? Yeah. What do we know about this calling range? We know that it's going to be jacks. When we have tens, it's more likely to be jacks. He'd probably just go ahead and fold nines, to be honest. I think jacks and queens are more likely to be like, oh, I really, really don't want to 4-bet, but I really, really don't want to fold. So those are the things that I'm mostly thinking that him having here. Ace, king of diamonds. Ace, king of spades.
Yep.
Interesting. I think those, with the action as it is, with this fish in here, and this guy in here, the extra value, and playing multi-way, it's obviously just not like an ideal situation to be calling in. So I think I would prefer to just like obviously 4-bet fold with his range, but as Clay, he does call. Now I'm pretty concerned about. Obviously, he would have folded anything. I think he might have even folded ace king of spades, depending on. Probably ace king of spades is going to float one here. Ace king of diamonds is certainly not folding, but it might do some raising, and then we've still got those, the elephant in the room, the jacks and the queens, right?
Yep.
Not a good turn, and I think we can probably go ahead and do some checking here. And opponent rips. Close, right? Because it depends really how much ace, because we know there's two hands we're going to beat here at the moment. The problem I have is that when he rips here, he's going to have ace king of diamonds, ace king of spades sometimes, then pocket jacks and pocket queens. Who knows? Maybe even pocket kings. Probably not though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just saying. I think my problem here is I know exactly what I lose to. I know exactly what I beat. The fact that I unblock the flush suits is probably irrelevant.
Completely irrelevant.
Tens,
yeah.
Maybe if I had queens, it would be a different story.
Queens is still pretty tough in the spot, to be honest with you. We're probably not going to be able to fold because our opponent can have queens, but he's also going to have jacks a bunch. But like ace king of spades and diamonds, we're still not even like doing great against. To be honest, they've got tons and tons of equity, and then we're just super dead against the rest, right? So I think we have to fold here for sure, and I'd say this is probably a punt if we do call.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go with queens. Queens without... queens, any form of queens, it would be my guess here. Yeah. He has the two diamond and the spade as well, so even if we had like ace, I just think we have to fold. Like I said like queens is just like going to be in the bottom, like the very bottom end of like, oh, I really don't want to 4-bet. He should 4-bet, especially against you, right? But I don't think he will, and I think for sure that this turn call, in the best case scenario, I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head, but we're not going to be doing very like excellently, right?
Yeah.
We're still going to be having to fade. There's really no situation where we get our money in like happily or like with significant equity here. So yeah, for sure, especially considering how much he's going to have queens and jacks here, based on the kind of thing I expect opponents to turn up here with when they are constructing call ranges, whether they're constructing ranges or whether they don't know what that means. But if he's a reg, he should. He's not going to be able to balance this very easily. Like, this is going to be probably the best hand he's going to have here. He's not going to have any better.
Well, this is what we were saying. It's like I just think this is like very, very bad. But
yeah, but so is your
kind
call.
Of like I kind of make it. I kind of make it okay for him.
Yeah.
By the end of the hand.
Oh yeah, you give him some serious money here. We can just, if you want to check the turn with like aces with the ace of spades, that's fine. Aces with the ace of spades and diamonds, or kings with the king of diamonds or king of spades, that's okay with me, because he's going to have jacks some. But most of the time, we're just going to want to pop it in on the turn, right? If we don't have those suits, because we don't want one of those suits to roll off. But when we check, I think we just have some check calls. It's not like we're checking here and we're never able to call with any of our range, because, like I said, we can have some checks here, especially those two combos we're talking about, the aces and the kings with the suits. So yeah, just definite punt, right? So unfortunately, that means that Steve can't come back, but he may be able to, get a consolation prize at the end. Let's see. So in our 9th hand, we have King Queen of Hearts, and Steve is going to open up the cutoff, which seems good. Button calls, and we have a 3-bet from small blind. And this guy behind us is not going to do a bunch of jamming. I think we can just call here and get some pretty decent odds as well. And he does call, and we're getting a really good price now, obviously. Rough board against aggression, right? And here's the reason, right? Obviously, we're not going to fold here because we do have the backdoor hearts as well as the king queen. But specifically when there's a fish in the pot and your 3-way, our opponent is just not going to be doing much bluffing because he'll know the button's not going to be doing like as much folding as he should, and that you're going to have like some hands that connect quite well with this board, right? Yep. So if he had ace king, he's just not going to bet. If he had pocket 10s and pocket jacks, he's just not going to bet. So when he does bet, he's mainly going to have ace queen, kings, and aces, or king queen himself, maybe queen jack. So we can't fold, but I'm starting not to like where this is going.
Okay.
Turns a 3. He bets all in. Is that all in?
Yep.
Yeah, this is a this is a fold. There's no draws on the board, so it's not even like, he could even have 3-bet like ace deuce or like 6-7 even, 6-7 I don't expect to just absolutely bomb this turn. I expect most of his value range to go small here. This bet is obviously bad, but he could just go like a third or half pot here, and then obviously have a very happily sized river jam. Do I expect you ever to be winning here? No. Like, what percentage of the time I think you'll be winning here is like so minute. Like, the main reason is if we were heads up, it'd be closer, but still not very close. But with the guy behind us, he's just not going to be c-betting flop with hands that aren't as good or better than king queen. And when he jams a turn, he just now no longer has king queen either. So I think this is just, if I'm going to guess, it's just going to go with aces.
Yeah,
that seems good. Yeah, clear fold and a clear punt from Punterella Staburns. What have you got to say for yourself?
It's no fun folding. No fun. I like to call. I do call a lot.
You do seem like a massive station. I mean, most of Bean's punts are like you said, they're just like him jamming and hoping for the best. You've had a few of those.
I have a large variety to the ways I can get my money in badly.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be a 3-street.
I think you need to just believe some of these 10 and L regs a bit more, not regs or like 10 and L pool. Generally speaking, especially with the guy on the button in there, there's just no chance this guy's not going to have aces and kings every time.
Okay.
Yeah, but what is it now, Steve? A 7-2 down.
7-2.
I mean, to be fair, like I've said, you did dig deep into the vault, so we can't feel too bad for you. If this is like the worst you could come up with, then I guess it's like okay, but we are definitely leaking some money. Anyway, let's go and grab the final hand, and I believe that you've mentioned that it's a special one, so let's go and take a look. So in this hand we have the Jack 10 of clubs, and I knew as soon as I saw the table arrangement that this was going to be the home game that we played on New Year's Day, very late into the day, with a bunch of the guys from the Discord and a few of my real life friends as well. Background to the game: few people were quite drunk, mainly Rowderable, and the money was going all over the place. So we need to factor that in when we think about whether things are punts or not punts. Anything you want to say before this hand?
I was trying to defend your honor against Rowderable, mostly.
Right.
Based on his ace 10 call.
Oh, that hurt. Anyway, it looks like some absolute donks opening from the cutoff, and the button is going to 3-bet, which seems good. So obviously we're not doing this in a normal game, but like I said, this was absolutely flying this game. Like already, right off the rip, we were, 4-betting all over the place. And it's a home game, so things are going to happen. Not going to judge you for slapping this in against Rowderable, who had been drinking and was 3-betting like a madman. So
he still hasn't been seen since.
I've been speaking to him. I've been speaking to him. He's playing lots of tournaments. He's playing lots of donkments. And he's tilting hard, by the way. just in case you do lose his hand, it makes you feel any better. Although you were sitting on a massive pile of my chips by the end of the session. So Steve starts with a bet, which I think is reasonable. Obviously, Roundable's going to have like not a lot of 8x. He may 3-bet call in this game dynamic with 8-7 suited, 9-8 suited. But that's probably
Yeah,
about
it's
it.
very possible.
Maybe ace-8 suited. People were not doing a lot of folding. But, you know, he could certainly have those hands, for sure, in this dynamic. He starts with a call. Obviously, we have our range advantage still sitting quite pretty. And yeah, I think the turn in this dynamic is just going to have to go in, mate. We have a 9. We have maybe a 10. Like against him, he could call with a tie in this dynamic, honestly. And nothing but a jam here for me, bud. Obviously, still have all those good over pairs that we're going to want to jam for sure in this dynamic, because he's definitely not going to fold like, you know, pocket 9s, because there's no way that was folding in this game. You can attest to that, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like we're looking for, what can we get called by here? Like if we had value, because it was just all going in. And obviously we're going to need to have bluffs, and we're going to go for some thin value as well. Like we could even jam jacks here pretty happily, I think, against him.
Yep.
So he does call, but this is certainly not a punt. And we brick, and Roundable shows up with indeed the pocket 9. So yeah, exactly like I said, he's just not folding this hand to you here. And obviously he shouldn't be. So he also has outs, obviously, when you've got aces as well, many more outs than he might have if he had jacks, obviously. So this is probably a better call than that. But if you ever jamming 10s here, which probably you're going to have to in this dynamic, then jacks.
I think I'm just double barreling off with all my high clubs, all my overpairs. I don't think any of it doesn't go in.
But I think this is completely fine. And Roundable's never folding here in the spot, given what had been going down already. I'd fired off like a few bluffs already. Everyone was getting involved. So I think this is absolutely fine. And I believe that ends the final score for Stee is on 3. And for the punts, they are on 7. If anyone scores it differently, let us know your scores in the comments below. But for now, guys, and Steve, thank you so much, dude, for bringing these hands on. I really enjoyed looking at them all. Maybe we could filter out a few of these calls. But, you do you, man. You do whatever you think's right. But yeah, thanks, dude, for bringing them on.
No problem.
So that's going to do it for this episode of Punt or No Punt. Hopefully we can get some new and different people. Obviously, Bean will be always around for some more punting. I've been hearing some bad things about some sessions recently. But if, say, for example, your name was Hurley and you wanted to bring some, punts onto the channel and back up your talk in the comments, then that would also be very reasonable as well. But for now, dudes, that's going to do it. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.